Madam President.
Majority Leader is recognized.
Anyone watching the Senate yesterday saw another installment in an ongoing series that has become somewhat familiar. Republicans roll out yet another effort to forge a bipartisan compromise around coronavirus relief. And Democrats reply with partisan cheap shots and threats to block everything. Republicans develop a serious plan to get historic amounts of additional money in the pipeline for kids, for jobs, for schools. And Democrats just point fingers, call names, and keep blocking American families from getting any more help before the November election. In July, Republicans put forward a serious framework, but Speaker Pelosi and the Democratic leader refused to talk unless the starting point was their literally absurd $3.4 trillion far-left wish list that even House Democrats called a stunt. In August, with those talks stalled, Republicans proposed narrow agreements on specific urgent policies to help families, unemployment benefits, the paycheck again. This time, their invented excuse was that any assistance short of their entire wish list was too piecemeal and not worth doing. Diversity studies for the cannabis industry, stimulus checks for illegal immigrants, tax cuts for blue state millionaires, they'd make sure millions of Americans would lose their unemployment benefits and PPP would close. That's what they threatened, and that's what they did. So here we are in September. Schools and colleges have gone without $1 billion that Republicans wanted to give Pelosi put in her bill. American workers have gone without the second round of the PPP that Republicans proposed weeks and weeks ago. Speaker Pelosi had no money for PPP, and her $3.4 in vaccines has gone without the additional funding that Republicans wanted to deliver. Families have gone without the economic relief put in their pockets. And Washington Democrats have just kept trying to run out the clock until November. But here's one thing, Madam President, the Senate majority works for the American people. We fight for American families. We're not going to let Speaker Pelosi and the Democratic leader kill and bury coronavirus relief behind closed doors without putting every senator on the record. So we have put together a new targeted proposal containing several of the most urgent and most popular policies that would help Americans right now. And tomorrow, the whole Senate will vote on it. It will be a procedural vote. It's not a vote to pass our bill tomorrow precisely as written. It's a vote for senators to say whether they want to move forward toward huge amounts of relief for kids, for jobs, for health care, or whether they are happier doing absolutely nothing. That is what every single senator will decide tomorrow. Do you want to do something, or do you want to do nothing? Democratic leaders know this simple choice will put the spotlight on their partisan antics. They know this vote will expose their obstruction. Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer were attacking our new proposal yesterday before they'd even read it, before it had even come out. I would normally make fun of that, Madam President, but in this case it makes perfect sense because their position is clearly they do not want any bipartisan relief whatsoever. They do not want any bipartisan relief whatsoever to reach American families prior to the election. They didn't even need to see what we were proposing. If it helped working families in any way, Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer knew for sure they opposed it. They're red herrings and Yesterday, our colleague from New York railed against a provision pertaining to critical supply chains, calling it some sinister giveaway to big business. A provision pertaining to critical supply chains he called a sinister giveaway to big business? Madam President, that provision is co-sponsored by his own. So either the Democratic leader is impugning his own ranking member right along with Republicans, or else he simply doesn't know what he's talking about. Likewise, the junior senator from Vermont attacked this provision as corporate welfare. But he himself did not vote against this very provision in committee on 2 occasions. They're so desperate to keep working families from getting any help before the election that some Democrats are now attacking things they previously supported. At this point, it's just silly season on the Democratic side. They've run out of excuses not to legislate, and even their cheap shots just backfire in embarrassing ways. But tomorrow, the Senate will cut through all the noise with 1 vote. Every senator will either say they want to move forward, agree where we can, make a law to help people, and keep arguing over our differences later, or say they prefer to do absolutely nothing. Every senator will vote on this significant package, which secures federal unemployment benefits, reopens the PPP for a second draw, sends more than $100 billion to keep kids safe in school, helps parents with child care, helps families afford expenses or homeschooling, and rebuilds our strategic medical stockpile. This is not a simplistic argument over big versus small. Republicans want more money for K through 12 and college than was in the Democrats' bill. We want more money for PPP, which their bill forgot to fund. These are bipartisan priorities that Democrats left behind and Republicans want to take care of. So tomorrow, American families will learn who wants to make a law for them and who is happiest if they get nothing. Now, on a completely different matter, on Saturday, the world of sports once again revolved around my hometown of Louisville for the 146th Kentucky Derby. Like so many other events, the coronavirus made this year's Derby look a little different. The race had already been postponed for only the 2nd time in history, and none of the 150,000 spectators who normally fill Churchill Downs were there to sing My Old Kentucky Home. But the most exciting 2 minutes in sports refused to be defeated. The Derby remains the longest continuously held American sporting event, and this year's Labor Day Derby proved worth the wait. The winning thoroughbred, Authentic, outlasted a ferocious This year's Derby showed our great traditions can adapt to overcome any challenge. But our sport, horse racing throughout my career. I introduced a checkoff bill to promote the sport domestically. I assembled a coalition to open new markets in Japan and Hong Kong. I worked to make sure internet regulation did not unduly restrict the racing industry. I've secured tax provisions to promote equine equity and grow investment in Kentucky. It's been my privilege to deliver for this sport and Kentuckians who stand behind it. Today, I'm introducing new legislation to keep it up, because unfortunately, the coronavirus isn't thoroughbred racing. Medication scandals and an inconsistent patchwork of regulations have cast clouds over the future. The National Publications editorial board even called for this sport to be abolished altogether. We needed action to protect the sport we love, defend our history, and the 24,000 Kentuckians who work in the thoroughbred racing industry. So in Lexington, the horse capital of the world, I announced with my friend Congressman Andy Barr that we'd found a way forward. Today, I'll introduce the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act to recognize a uniform national standard for thoroughbred racing. Baseball, football, and other professional sports have a central regulatory authority. Thoroughbred racing should as well. Some of the biggest names in the sport, Churchill Downs, Keeneland, the Breeders' Cup, and the Jockey Club, just to name a few, are supporting our plan to provide federal recognition and enforcement power to an independent horse racing integrity and safety authority. The board will be made up of both industry-selected and independent members. It will set national standards for track safety, anti-doping and medication practices, and lab protocols. This will make thoroughbred racing as fair and as safe as possible. I'm proud to partner with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand on this bipartisan legislation. New York is home to another leg of the Triple Crown. Their junior senator has previously introduced similar legislation to protect our sport. I'm also glad to have the senior senator from California as an original co-sponsor on this bipartisan bill. Today, Congressman Barr and Congressman Tonko House. I'm grateful for Congressman Barr's years of leadership on this issue, and I'm glad we're making bipartisan, bicameral progress with our bill. This way, when we can all return to the grandstands to watch the thoroughbreds round the final turn toward a thundering finish, we'll be taking pride in a fair and safe race.